Sim shalom tova uvracha chen v'chesed v'rachamim.
Alexander Shipov, otherwise known as Shasha, applied for a visa to emigrate to Israel in 1979. 2 years later, in April 1981, he received a permit to move, and that's where he's living now with his wife and 2 daughters. What makes us so fortunate to have him here is that he's here. He's one of the fortunate ones to leave. He's able to tell the story of what it's like for a Soviet Jew now in Russia. Thank you for being here on Focus,
Thank you.
Shasha. There's a point in your life I call a pivotal point. You helped formulate a Jewish kindergarten in Russia. First, I'd like to know, why did you want to formulate it, help found it, and were there any risks involved in starting a school like this?
Well, first, it was the only one possibility to us to teach some kind of Jewish history, of Jewish tradition to our children. There is no other possibility. There is no Jewish schools, Jewish clubs in Soviet Union. There is no any Jewish kindergarten. And we wanted badly to teach to our children what we never had ourselves. And because none of us could give them some more or less complete information in the family, we wanted to do it together. And several families organized this kindergarten that we ran. As far as it concerns, if it was dangerous, well, from some point of view it was. People were threatened, but we liked it and we went on with this kindergarten. It was stopped only when KGB agents broke in the flat and they threatened kids. And after it, people had to stop it because, well, no one wanted their kids pay for this activity.
Has this always been out in the open, or was it an underground? A lot of schooling is in the underground.
Well, you can't apply seriously the word underground to Jewish movement. The first point, the basis of Jewish movement was that we didn't change anything in this country. We just wanted to use possibilities that were granted to all of national minority by Soviet Constitution first, and then we wanted to go to our home, to Israel. That's the only thing that we wanted. Nothing to change, nothing to improve, or that's the difference between Jewish movement and dissident movement.
You said you wanted to give your children something you never had, namely a Jewish education. How were you able to teach them Judaism if you didn't have it?
Well, I wasn't able, really. I just learned it with kids from someone else who knew something. I teach them what I could teach. I taught them mathematics, what I knew, and other things connected with Jewish history and Jewish tradition and Hebrew. I learned with them. It was a school for me as well.
How do the Russians view any kind of ethnic education other than Russian, religious customs and traditions?
Well, there are two things. First, national education that exists almost for every national group in Soviet Union, for Ukrainians and Armenians and Lithuanians. Here, Jews are in a very specific situation. They have no possibilities. As far as it concerns religion, well, almost all kinds of religions are persecuted almost the same way. They are still more or less strong in the Asia for Muslims because it's connected with their life very strongly, or for Lithuanians. Yeah. But Jews were dispersed in the whole country, and the whole, well, structure of their life was destroyed shortly after the revolution. They have almost no communities even, in the sense that people know in America or in Europe. There are very few synagogues. One of synagogues in Kiev, well-known synagogues, is now a puppet theater. In every big, large city, there is one synagogue.
You may want to mention, your school was in Moscow, and we know here in the United States, all it takes is some funds to start a kindergarten. In your case, it was a lot more difficult. Did you know you may be jeopardizing your chances to ever leave Russia if you did start a school like this?
Well, first, when I started it, I even didn't think about immigration seriously. It was just a possibility to educate my daughter. But after all, it helped us to decide, to take a decision, to apply for an immigration. Well, several times, some officials pretended that it can be an obstacle in our way out. But well, it was one of the very, very few possibilities to have our private life, the life that we would like to live. So we are never sure if they are telling you truth or not. And what we had for granted, it's our life. We didn't want to give up.
A lot of people who knew you there and worked with you, I'm sure some of them are still back there. Do you think they were inspired to keep a school like this or start another one going again, even though it was stopped?
Well, a lot of people, some of my friends, got involved in this kindergarten just because they knew through us what we got from this kindergarten and through some other activities. And they wanted just to go the same way, to give to their children opportunity to learn something. For a moment, this kindergarten is closed.
Think it will open again?
Perhaps they will try. They tried to do it in an open way and then to keep quiet. For some time it was known in the West, and a lot of people came to visit us and to help and to teach us how to deal with children. Yeah. None of us were professionals. But after some time people decided to keep quiet, but it didn't help. They closed it.
How are you able, Sasha? You say, you want to have this private life, but at the same time you're part of the Russian society. How are you able to balance your life is fitting into the mainstream of Russian society and at the same time realizing you're a Jew?
Well, it's not so easy question to answer. First, most of people realize that they are Jews not because they were taught this way in their families, or not because they knew something positive. They come to this, well, let's say, temple of Jewishness, not through the main entrance, as most of Jews do in the West or in Israel. We came into this building through the black entrance, through anti-Semitism. I first knew that I'm Jew, but when I was cursed in the street. And after all, someone is trying to escape to be as others. Someone is trying to know something positive about Jews, about their history. And, well, one way it's a way of assimilation, another way it's a way of immigration, mostly. Because most of people that went to study something about their Jewishness, after all, decided to immigrate.
What are the chances like of emigrating?
For a moment, it's almost zero. Last month, there were only some 80 people that were permitted out, comparatively to 1979, when more than 4,700 of people a month were permitted out.
Before we had talked a little, you were one of the fortunate ones who was able to emigrate 2 years after applying for it, and you didn't hear from them for 2 years. But there are still some people there. Their chances are very dim. of leaving. And you had talked a little bit, I'd like you to explain the case of someone who has insufficient kinship, as in the case of a Jewish German woman.
Well, she is Polish Jewish woman, and this woman spent 5 years of her life in ghettos, in German concentration camps. She went through Białystok ghetto, Majdanek, Buchenwald, Auschwitz, Bergen-Belsen. Now she is with the family of her daughter in Russia, and she is refused visa on the ground of insufficient kinship. It means that she has no close relatives in Israel. It's only natural. Well, most of her kinfolk still in Majdanek or Buchenwald. And, well, they found that it's enough not to permit her out. Though none of her family never was connected with any kind of secrecy or such things.
Do you think there's ever any hope of her leaving?
I think so. I think that in this particular case, people or organizations that are connected with Holocaust, with Second World War, could simply imply to Soviet authorities. And I don't think that they would like to have troubles on this ground. They usually use this ground as their ground. They are liberators, they are savers. And perhaps they wouldn't like, just because of one family, to have troubles with organizations of people that came through the war and through camps. But, well, from this point, you can help to some families, but not to most of people, not to improve the situation.
Sasha, this has got to be confusing to children. Here you started a kindergarten, you're teaching them Jewish education, and then it ended. How do you explain that to your daughter, that, sorry, we can't continue this school any longer?
Well, my daughter was lucky enough, and we went out when this kindergarten worked. And she just went out and came to Israel, to another kindergarten, to a school, to a Jewish school in Israel. So she didn't feel it.
What about the ones who don't leave?
Well, I feel it's very difficult. It's even more difficult for kids who are going to Soviet school after this kindergarten. You can't avoid it. You can avoid kindergarten, but Soviet school is something that you can't avoid.
Sasha, how do the Soviets view Jews? What is their perception of what a Jew is, and what is the perception of what a Jew is according to the Jews there?
Well, most of Soviet Jews are almost completely assimilated, and it's hard to explain what is their point of view. Each one has his own point of view. My father, when I was 6, explained to me that Jews, those are ancient people, and, well, look, Stein was Jew, and Karl Marx was Jew, and even Jesus Christ was Jew. For a moment, when I was a kid, it was enough for me that my father was Jew, enough to be proud of it. But I don't know as others feel it. Very few people were brought up in kind of traditional families. They knew a bit more, a lot more than I. But still there are Jews that would like just to escape of their Jewishness. I understand.
What do the Russians think a Jew is?
Well, I don't know. I never was on this side. I know what they do. I don't know what they feel. Hard to get to their shoes.
Okay, you were active in Russia. In fact, at one point, one day you were detained because you helped prepare a petition to present to the Russian authorities, and you were released hours later. Have you maintained contacts with the people you worked with?
You mean now? Well, I'm trying hard to do it. The only thing that people, my friends, ask me to do is write letters, to know something about Israel. Most of people know nothing about Israel. There is no information on Israel, only kind of Soviet information that gives more than a black picture of this country. So people would like to know my opinion, how I found my place in Israel. I wrote, but
I believe
after
you brought some.
2 or 3 months, as all of my letters were sent back. It's just a little part of my letters. For a moment, I have more than 200 of them
200?
that
Now,
I get
these
back.
are letters that don't go through to the people.
Yes, different people, my mother, my brother, my friends. And, well, when I tried to inquire what was the reason, I got the only one answer from Soviet Post, that I'm trying to use postal correspondence in order to get a personal profit. I don't really know what did they mean, but they never wanted to go in details.
Would the same thing happen in the United States? A lot of people have been asked to write letters to individuals in the Soviet Union. Would they get the same response you're getting?
Well, if they could, if they would get such response, it can be used. It can be used to punish Soviet Post for such an impertinence. Because I can't apply to International Post Office, as they don't want to consider complaints from Israel. From America, it's possible. And it seems to me that they have to be punished.
I have to add right now, for those people out there who have written letters and they have gotten letters back with the pink slip, which is the registration slip, there is something that can be done through the Chicago Conference on Soviet Jewry. You can call Carol Hirsch at 444-2881. That's 444-2881. And they have a way of getting back to the Soviet Union if they do get a letter back with the pink slip. So do call her. And I wish you have more luck. Hopefully, if you just keep sending more and more letters. Does that help too? Just the on-surge of letters?
Yes, it helps. It helps immensely from several points of view. First, it's kind of moral support to people, not to keep alone, not to feel that they are alone. Second, Soviet authorities, when someone is getting regular post, regular mail from abroad, they know that someone is interested in this person, and they can't just do what they want to do with him. And the third aim, I think, that to punish Soviet Post for such things. And I'm not the only one to get it. It's just an example.
It was explained to me that the Soviet Union has to pay the person who sends a letter when they get one back without the pink slip.
No, when this letter is lost, they have to pay.
Right.
If it's not delivered, but if the letter is not lost, if I have it back, there is no law. No one even thought that there is such a possibility that Post will just send letters back. It's something abnormal. Post is not supposed to do such things. No one seriously considered such a possibility.
It's a small penalty. Why do you think you were permitted to leave?
Well, one can only guess. I don't know. They mostly are trying to not to let people understand why they were permitted. If someone knew why I was permitted, the next day several thousands of people would do the same thing to be permitted. So they are trying people to be confused, not to understand what's going on, why one permitted and why not. They permit to leave to one activist and to several thousands of people that kept quiet. Next day they permit several, 10 of activists and one of those that was quiet. You can't catch it.
Random?
But, well, yes. But what is obvious that people who are long-term refuseniks and who are known are used last time as a kind of example, just to let others understand what their life will be like after application. And there is very few hope for them if no one trying to help to them.
Why do you think recently it's been likened that right now the conditions in allowing granting visas, it's almost as bad as it was during the time of Stalin? Now that thought puts chills up my spine as well as others. Why do you think now it's gotten so bad?
Well, there are several reasons. I think you can't explain such things just by one word. One of the main reasons, I think, that several years ago, when they permitted comparatively many people to live, they looked for most favored trade nation status in the United States. They looked for, they wanted to get grain, computers, high technology. Now, and Jews were a kind of card in this game. Now no one seems to be interested in this game, in this card. And, well, even the grain that they got last time from United States, they got without asking for something back. I don't speak only about Jews. I couldn't find any reason, any things that they got back on human rights ground, Jewish ground. I'm sorry, but it seems to me that if nothing changes in this field, if no one is interested in this question, in this problem, this future of Soviet Jews is very dark. You mentioned the time of Stalin, and the people that are in Russia, they know that in 40s it was tremendous anti-Semitic propaganda, and it was a plan to exile all of Jews in Siberia. And first part of this plan was even carried out. 15 Yiddish writers were shot as American spies, and famous Yiddish actor Michoels was simply murdered. And it was several processes, several trials against Jews, the most famous one against Jewish doctors. And only the death of Stalin stopped it. But those little buildings, little wooden houses that they built in Siberia for Jews in this time, without heating, without anything, they are still there. People saw them. They are still in order, so no one is living there. Someone is looking after them. And it's still possible that Jews will come to live there. Because, well, you can't keep 300,000 of people and have 300,000 of people now that are looking for a possibility to immigrate, just living with others. They have to decide what to do with them. It's something against the whole of ideology of this state. People, well, declared openly that they want to leave this communist paradise. And there's only two possibilities, or to let them out, to throw them out, or to isolate them. If no one is willing to help them, if no one gives an opportunity to Soviet authority to use them as a card, well, they will isolate them.
You said that there's a fear of losing interest. If the people lose interest in the Soviet Jews there, that would be it. I know you don't have a crystal ball, but can you think of any ideas that we can do here in the States, in Israel, and other places to help incite more interest and encourage people to get onto this issue?
First, it seems to me that mass media has to do a lot in Israel, both in Israel and the United States and in Europe, about Soviet Jews. And, well, American citizens can influence the political leaders to consider this question as one of the most serious one. If they think so, I have no right to dictate to anyone. I'm not American citizen, but still, well, I hope that people will understand it, that something very similar to the Second World War can happen to Soviet Jews. Perhaps not exactly the same thing, but we can lose these people, can lose them physically. They have no culture, kind of cultural holocaust is, we can say, finished. Most of people know that they are Jews only because they are written in their passport, but there is only one step.
You said that a Holocaust, like the one that happened in Hitler's time, can happen again today. Do you think some of the Jews there resent their Judaism, the fact they're persecuted because of their religion?
First, most of Jews are not religious in Soviet Union. Most of Jews, as I said, are completely assimilated. It's the second, well, time in history Jews are persecuted not because of their religion, because of their blood. They are persecuted as Jews because they are written so on their passports, because their father is Jew or their mother is Jewish. It's enough. They haven't to be religious to be persecuted. I mean, I don't mean that all of them are persecuted. I don't mean that all of them can't find a job and so on. No, it's they do it in a sophisticated way. Now it's very difficult to Jewish teenagers to get to the university, almost impossible. Just when I started to study in Moscow University, on my course it was about a third of Jews, because it was widely known that it was almost the only one place where Jews were allowed. 3 years later, out of 500 of people on one grade, there were only 10 or 12 Jews. When I left, it was only 1 or 2 out of 550, because it became larger, but not for Jews.
Could you say anything? Noticing that, the diminishing numbers?
What do you mean?
Could you speak up and say, what's going on here? There's only one Jew.
Well, yes, people tried. Two of former students of our faculty, Kanevsky and Sandorf, tried to get information about special problems that were prepared for Jews. They did it 2 years. Third year, they were arrested. They are now in prison. One of them got 5 years of exile. Second one is not sentenced yet. Only because they wanted to get information about these special exams.
Are you, knowing what you went through, the ordeal that your fellow Jews are going through in the Soviet Union, are you proud to be Russian? You know you're Jewish. Are you proud of your Russian background?
Well, I wouldn't like just to throw it out. I was grown up on Russian culture. Perhaps it's not so well, but I can't throw it out. Well, we speak Russian now. I'm sorry, but it's my mother language. I like Russian culture. I like Russian people. I had a lot of friends of Russian. I don't like this regime. I don't like this kind of country. It has no connection with Russian culture. Perhaps it's even again Russian culture.
How's your life changed since you've moved to Israel, with you and your family?
Well, on one side, I feel happy. My life became more complete on one side. On the other hand, it can be complete because a lot of my friends are still in Russia. And for me, it's the only thing that I would like to have out of this country. My friends. My friends and others that are there, that are not permitted.
Do you jeopardize their chances of leaving if you try to communicate with them? And do you ever jeopardize your own family's safety in trying to communicate with them?
Well, I didn't understand. Sorry.
Is there ever any risk to your friends' safety and their survival if you try and communicate with them?
Perhaps, but it's always up to them to decide if they want to communicate me or not. I never tried to communicate someone who would like to keep quiet. I write only to those that would like to get my letters. I'm trying to help only to those ones that are interested in some kind of help. And if I give to someone some specific address or trying to let people be interested in some specific case, it's only when people ask me to do so. I never trying to force anyone. It's their right to decide.
Unfortunately, our time has run out. This has gone by very quickly. But if you have one message to give to your fellow Jews, other people here in the community, you're here in the United States, you're able to speak freely now, what is the one message you'd like to share with people about the Soviet Jews?
Well, perhaps one word, help. I never thought, even when I left, the situation can be so desperate. And United States seems the only serious power that can change the situation.
Right.
So American Jews, perhaps the only power inside the state that can start it if they feel that it's serious.
Sasha, Shifoy, thank you so much. And you heard what he said. If you'd like to help, the best way, if you want to know how you can help, call the Chicago Conference on Soviet Jewry. Ask for Carol Hirsch. That's 444-2881. They'll be glad to share with you ways you can help. And for Focus, I'm Deborah Palmer.
Sim Shalom.